Viewpoints on the talk station FM 107 AM 1240. We were chatting a few moments ago with Jay Delancey of the Voter Integrity Project about the hearing that's being conducted in Raleigh yesterday and today. And it looks like apparently we'll go all the way till Thursday on the decision on whether or not to accept the results of the election in the 9th Congressional District. And we have joining us this afternoon Dr. Andy Jackson. He's a professor of political science, and currently an adjunct professor at Lewisburg College. And in addition to that, he's the election policy fellow at the North Carolina Civitas Institute. And he's been doing a series of articles on the Civitas website, appearing on the Civitas website, on the topic of ballot harvesting. And with that, Dr. Jackson, good evening. Thanks for joining us.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Let's talk about this issue of ballot harvesting for a moment. The concept is kind of unique to most of us. We've never thought about this. This is basically a process where you're not only delivering the absentee ballots, but also picking them up and taking them theoretically back to the election board. Is that correct?
That is correct. It involves a political operative, somebody that's working for either a party or a candidate, and on that party or candidate's behalf, gathering up ballots from multiple people. It wouldn't be the same thing if, for example, you had your mother deliver the ballot for you. That would not be harvesting.
Oh, we're not okay. So a family member can do that, can deliver the ballot, but yes, a third party cannot. All right. Quick question. Of course, this is focused right now on the 9th Congressional District. As a matter of fact, primarily one county, Bladen County, but apparently there seems to be some other indications this happened in other counties as well. Curious, is this unique to North Carolina, or is this a problem, say, nationwide?
Well, ballot harvesting does happen nationwide just because there are ballots out there for people to get, and the temptation to get those can be overwhelming. As we've seen in a couple instances here in Bladen County, having an effective ballot harvesting operation can turn around hundreds of votes.
Right.
That's the reason that McCrae Dulles was hired by several campaigns in both parties, because he was really good at what he did.
Okay, now here's the kicker. If I fill out the ballot and seal it and hand it to, in this case, one of Mr. McCrae Dulles' crew, or say to you, Dr. Andy Jackson, how is that being tainted? Other than because unless you open the ballot, you don't know how I voted. What's the threat?
Well, there's several here. One, if there is an active ballot harvesting operation that is collecting and delivering hundreds of ballots, it's a little difficult for us to make the presumption that all of those ballots were properly signed, properly voted, properly sealed. Anytime where you get a third party involved with that, especially a party whose motivation is to serve one of the candidates, that's where the danger of ballot harvesting comes in. And there's several different ways that ballot harvesting can affect votes.
All right. One of the ways would be, I guess, the fact that you would somehow know that for example, you're picking up my ballot and I historically vote Democrat and you're the Republican. You would assume that I'm probably voting Democrat, so you might accidentally lose my ballot before it ever gets to the Board of Elections, right?
Yes, that is one of the possibilities.
Okay. What are the other challenges associated? I mean, what other issue?
Well, a couple of them, and all of these have been alleged in the ongoing hearings of the 9th District. You can have people collecting ballots that have not been properly sealed, and taking a look at them and filling in some or all races. You can have also people coming in, and this one is also insidious, but it's maybe a little less cut and dry. Is that you could be, as somebody who's there campaigning for somebody, you could be providing folks help or assistance,
or suggestions,
helping, deciding them who to vote for. Now, in North Carolina and in most states, we have laws against electioneering in polling places. There's a reason for that, because we don't want to have politicians or their operatives having undue influence on voters. And so we don't allow electioneering in physical polling places. But this is a way for campaigns to get around that. If they know that there's a ballot in a household, they can go in and try to exert influence on people. Right. And that is something that's done by not just for Dallas, but for other folks in Bladen County as well.
Okay, before we go to the break, quick question for you. The circumstances that we're seeing down in Bladen County, is that highly unusual, or is this something that has been going on not only in North Carolina and other states and other instances, but it's just never seen this much disclosure?
The basic activities of ballot harvesting are fairly widespread. They've been happening in North Carolina, not just in Bladen County over the past decade. There's been some in Yancey and some in other counties as well. But as far as we can tell, based on some of the statistical anomalies that came up, this is really the most extensive operation that we're aware of. Now, in some states, it's a legal operation, so there's not really an attempt to stop it.
What you said, in some states, this is actually legal to do it this way?
Yes. Like, for example, in 2016, ballot harvesting was legalized. They call it collecting in California. And so that was one of the reasons people believe that the Democratic Party did so well in relatively conservative Orange County, California, because the Democrats just had a much better ballot harvesting operation than the Republicans did.
Wow. Our guest this afternoon, we're going to take a quick break. Andy Jackson, he's a professor of political science, doctorate. He got it from the University of Nebraska, so he knows a little about something about. Is it true that Nebraska is really just a basketball school? Anyhow, a real football school. We're going to be chatting with him for a few more moments about how we need to address this issue in just a moment here on Viewpoints. And again, he is the Election Policy Fellow at the Civitas Institute. And we'll give you details if you want to read these articles appearing on the website at nccivitas.org. nccivitas.org. You're listening to Viewpoints. Absolutely smart radio. And we just were chatting a moment ago off air. I was stunned by what our guest, Professor Andy Jackson, has shared with us. Again, Election Policy Fellow at the North Carolina Civitas Institute, nccivitas.org. And if you'll go to that website, you'll see the articles about which we are speaking. Andy, this is a fascinating story. So California does legalize ballot harvesting. Maybe we should do the same thing in North Carolina. I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but in light of the fact that the problem then goes away. How do you, and the reason I say that, how do you prevent it?
Well, there's a couple of measures. Now, ballot harvesting is already a felony in North Carolina. The problem with the enforcement of this ban of ballot harvesting is that it's really hard
to prove
for people to conduct an investigation, because not only that, but some people, when their ballots are harvested, they actually believe that that person is providing a service to them, when in fact they're providing the service to whatever campaign or party is paying for that harvesting. And so they might not even realize that they are party to something that is illegal. Now, there's several proposals that you can do to make ballot harvesting more difficult, and in doing so, making it less profitable.
Okay, let me interrupt one quick item here. If I am the voter and I willingly hand my absentee ballot to Taylor, my producer, who's third party, very, very definitely a third, maybe an eighth party in relationship here, and he goes off to take it to the Board of Elections and, in fact, does deliver it appropriately, he has committed a felony, but have I also passively committed a felony by giving it to him?
No, you know.
Okay.
The penalty is for the people that are collecting the ballot, not the people that hand it over.
Okay, good. I apologize. All right. So you say take the profit motive out of this is one way of doing that? How do you do that?
Well, there's a couple. You have to make ballot harvesting a less efficient operation.
Okay.
And there's a couple of ways. One, you have to increase the penalties for things, and this is a subset of ballot harvesting, colloquial known as granny farming, where you're going to convalescent homes, hospitals, other places where you essentially have a captive audience. Now, it's already a felony for candidates to go in and sign as a witness on absentee ballots, but there's nothing to prevent political operatives, people that are paid by parties or interest groups from doing that. That should be also made a felony, just like it is for candidates or party leaders. We should make absentee ballot requests secret until the ballot has been voted. Now, right now, that's a public record, so anybody can go in to the local board of elections, get the list of everybody that's requested an absentee ballot, and then that is their contact list for going out and trying to collect those ballots from people. That's another thing that can be done. One thing that you can do as well is right now anybody can submit an absentee ballot request. Now it has to be signed by the voter or near relative, but anybody can gather up all of those requests, pre-fill all the sections on the form, just have the person sign it. Now McCrae Dowless and personally delivered 592 absentee ballot requests to the Bladen County Board of Elections. That's essentially his collection list for round 2, which is when he or his operative actually would go out and collect or attempt to collect those ballots. Right.
So in essence, he already had a inside scoop as to who was going to be needing an absentee ballot anyhow. All right.
Right.
This of course leads to the question of how does North Carolina compare to other states in its election security and election propriety?
North Carolina, I mean, I'm not so much expert on other states as well, but we generally are middling. I mean, we're not awful. I mean, obviously the events down in the 9th District, give us a black eye. But we certainly have a ways to go to improve our situation. I mean, obviously there are events that happened in other states that take place as well. But right now, I mean, this actually, certainly makes us look worse than anybody else at this point. But these kind of shenanigans go on. I mean, this is the reason we had these kind of reforms to our voting system way back over 100 years ago during the Progressive era, is to try to get these kind of party machine tactics taken out. And these kind of tactics work their way. It's just like anything else, where you're trying to ban something that is detrimental to society. The criminals will find new ways to get around it. So you have to be diligent. I'm sorry.
And related to a black eye, and of course, I have to mention I'm from Carteret County, which got national to play back in, I think it was the 2000 election. I'm trying to remember the year when one early voting site lost over 4,000 votes. And they just disappeared. And as a result, several races were delayed. One of them, of course, being the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, because there were enough votes in that particular ballot or that particular machine that could have greatly changed the conclusion of the election. All right. Our guest this afternoon, Andy Jackson, again, he is the election policy fellow for the North Carolina Civitas Institute and adjunct professor at Lewisburg College, where he teaches political science, where he has his doctorate in political science. As we wrap it up with you, Dr. Jackson, I'm looking at this story and wondering, is there time to, solve this before the next election in 2 years?
Yes, there is. I mean, right now, as part of legislation passed by the General Assembly over the governor's veto in December, the Board of Elections is due to report on ballot harvesting activities in North Carolina across the state and what they've been doing to try to prevent that. That report is due by April 1st. Ooh. And so there is time immediately after that to go ahead and during the long session to at least start the process of instituting reform.
Okay, and that could probably be put into a legislative action before the 2020 election. That is fascinating, and of course, the other aspect of this, related to the issue of absentee ballots, it's also a part of educating the voters as well, is it not?
Yes, I mean, if anybody, the basic thing is, if anybody, and we found this out in some of the testimony, people instinctively recoil when people come to collect their ballots, and if it's like you tell your children, if it doesn't feel right, don't do it. Yeah. So if somebody collects your ballot, don't give it to them, or if somebody attempts to, don't give it to them.
All right. Our guest this afternoon, and I look forward to future conversations with you, Professor Andy Jackson. I say professor. He's going to be working. You're going to be moving full time. Is that correct? As the election policy fellow for the North Carolina Civitas Institute.
Yes, I'm going to be transitioning over there full-time in May.
Okay. I look forward to further conversations with you. Thank you very much for being with us this evening.
Okay, thank you. It's great to have great being here.
I appreciate it. And want to remind folks, go to the website, nccivitas.org. Again, I want to thank our guest, Professor Andy Jackson, and I continue to refer to him as Professor. All right, as we wrap it up, I just want to make one quick note about the fact that we have a really outstanding sponsor, and I've also often recommended that they maybe should take over running the election machinery, and that, of course, is Advanced Water Systems. The folks that bring you Connecticut, they have a system, that's Connecticut water system, that doesn't let you require any electrical hookup. I'll guarantee it'll work, and they probably ought to start making voting machines as well. If you want to find out more about the outstanding array of Connecticut products, of course, the renowned non-electric water solution, as their water softeners are known, give them a call locally in Old Cherry Point Road, 635, that's Old Cherry Point Road in New Bern, 635-6222, that's 635-6222. Home office and showroom, Highway 70 East between Newport and Morehead City, 223-4444, that's 223-4444, and of course online at ConnecticutNC.com to learn about the outstanding array of Connecticut products, but also you can see testimonials about the outstanding service provided by the single largest independent Connecticut dealer in the country, Advanced Water Systems. You're listening to Viewpoints on the talk station, FM 107, AM 1240.